Welcome once again, Business Principles students. Today we'll be discussing Part 1 of Chapter 9, Motivating Employees. In our agenda for this video, we'll be discussing Taylorism and Taylor's theory of scientific management. We'll talk about the procedure and the outcome of the Hawthorne studies. We'll identify the various levels in Maslow's hierarchy of needs and apply them to employee motivation. And we will distinguish between motivational and hygiene factors as identified by Hertzberg. So, to begin, what do you think are some of the outcomes of employee turnover? Costs for the company include a loss of intellectual capital, the working knowledge that individuals provide, and the knowledge they gain while experience on the job is always lost, regardless of how many procedures and processes were documented. This leaves a decreased morale for remaining workers who have to share the portion of the void employee's work, which can increase stress and gossip among employees as they discuss the reasons why the individual may have left. There may be a decreased level of customer service if this role is with the customer facing, and it can interrupt product development in research projects and R&D. If employee turnover happens often enough, it can equate to a poor reputation for the company itself. During COVID-19, we had an event known as the Big Quit, or the Great Reshuffle, or the Great Resignation. The Great Resignation was a period of record high voluntary job quits, primarily in 2021 and 2022, largely triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic. Workers resigned due to factors like low pay, lack of advancement, poor benefits, and the desire for greater flexibility or career change after the pandemic shifted priorities. The trend has since declined, and the labor market has moved into a period of lower turnover, referred to by some as the Great Stay. Here we're discussing the dynamic between employee engagement and employee retention. Those that are highly engaged exhibit factors of passion and commitment towards the work they do and the company they work for. They're motivated to come in every day and do their best job. The experience or level of retention equates to the level of satisfaction the employee has while at the company and in their current position. About 18% of companies have employees who have high engagement and low retention. This means they are hard workers, but they also provide a high turnover risk because they are motivated and they are not happy and satisfied in their current position. Those that are highly engaged and are looking to stay also have high retention and high engagement factors. These kinds of employees are the ones you want to try to obtain and try to keep. The disengaged, low commitment employees tend to move on and they don't really work very hard, but they also don't stay in one place very long. Disengaged, but not looking to leave employees have a high retention, high satisfaction in their current roles, but they have low passion and commitment for the job and exhibit low motivation. These kinds of employees are the absolute worst to have on your team. So, what exactly does motivate people? Individuals can be motivated by different things. Some need to hear that they're doing a good job. Others aren't satisfied until they receive a reward or reach a goal. People are motivated by one of two factors. They're either motivated by intrinsic rewards or extrinsic rewards. Intrinsic rewards come from inside, and they provide fulfillment through self-satisfaction and through enjoyment of doing the work. This kind of enjoyment can come from a sense of accomplishment when achieving portions of work. It can come from an interest or a personal growth opportunity. It can allow them creative outlets or outlets to strengthen their current skills and become a master or an expert at something. The key with intrinsic rewards is that they produce enjoyment just from engaging in doing the task. In contrast, extrinsic rewards are primarily obtained from external resources. This means that the company itself can provide it or the people around them, but typically they are short-term rewards, and the individual is eager for more extrinsic rewards or to obtain intrinsic rewards at a later point in time. So a short-term extrinsic reward could include trophy or a sense of recognized accomplishment within the company, different forms of money or pay, wages, or additional time given back to them that would otherwise be work time. So the key difference between intrinsic and extrinsic rewards is that intrinsic rewards come from inside. They can lead to long-term job engagement and loyalty. Extrinsic rewards, however, are external and tangible, and they usually result in short-term goals and meeting specific targets, but they don't provide long-term job engagement. Are you more intrinsically or extrinsically motivated? Are you more strongly motivated by your own desire to do well or by extrinsic rewards like pay and recognition? The truth is, most people are both intrinsically and extrinsically motivated. We'll discuss some of the reasons why later in this chapter, part one. So, Frederick Taylor, the father of scientific management, was studying workers to find the most efficient ways of doing things. And then he wanted to teach the individuals doing the job how to do the techniques in quote unquote the best way. So he did this by taking time samples of the duration of time it took for individuals to do the work. He also looked at the different methods of work. For example, the types of tools that were used, the hand grasping, and different processes and modalities of using tools or performing work efforts. Then finally, he looked at the rules of work. What kind of criteria guides the individual to performing great work? He took these studies and put them into something which is called Taylorism. This is the process of identifying and finding the best way to do tasks, and then teaching them to the team and repeating these processes over and over to gain long-term efficiencies. A present-day example of this would be a fast food restaurant. The double cheeseburger, and it may have gone down since the creation of the slide originally, but it should take between 3 and 5 minutes to create this burger. So the assembly takes place entirely in the box because it avoids that the burger is handled or moved around in various ways prior to entering the box. This way, the burger can be fully assembled in one station all at once. And then thirdly, the same ingredients are cooked the same way every time. So no matter where you go in the country and you order a double cheeseburger from McDonald's, for example, you are getting the exact same burger that is cooked the exact same way every time. Taylor's four key principles came as a result of Taylorism. Step one is using the scientific methods to determine and standardize the one best way to do the job. Step two is to divide the job into a clear division of tasks and responsibilities so each person knows their part and how to perform their task. Thirdly, individuals that are doing a great job should be rewarded for doing well, and high pay for high-performing employees was part of his process. Fourthly, The hierarchy of authority and strict surveillance of employees should be entailed, along with processes and procedures documented so everyone knows exactly what they need to be doing at all times. And that need is reinforced by visual aid and being reminded and surveyed to do the work. A modern day example of the scientific management approach is working today in UPS. So UPS tells drivers exactly how to drive, how to get out of their trucks, how quickly to walk, and even how to hold their keys. If an employee is not performing to UPS expected standards, someone will ride along with them and measure their performance and observe their tasks to make sure that they are following the UPS methods of doing things. Another modern day application of this is within lean management in manufacturing, and it's spreading out to other processes. First, we start with identifying value. This value is what the customer is expecting and what benefits they will receive. Once we have identified this, we map the end-to-end process and remove any unnecessary steps or steps that do not create value. Thirdly, we create a flow by eliminating waste. Then the pull is established by customer demand. And finally, we seek perfection in all work processes by establishing a methodology of continuous improvement. Now let's discuss Elton Mayo and the Hawthorne studies. So, Elton Mayo studies were inspired by Frederick Taylor's research. He wanted to understand how individuals reacted in a work environment at different levels of light. During his study, regardless of how low he turned the lights or how bright, or even to the point where people could hardly see, productivity increased under all circumstances. They realized that this was because of a human effect or psychological effect at play, which is called the Hawthorne effect. The Hawthorne effect is the tendency for people to behave differently when they know they are being studied. This is a picture of the ladies that were involved in the Hawthorne effect manufacturing experiment under different levels of light. What happened is that the ladies were involved in the project at all points. They received special pay for being part of the project, and they were also asked their thoughts and opinions during the project. So, in short, these ladies knew that they were being observed, and they knew they were part of a special group and were treated as such, which motivated them to produce great work at all levels of the experiment. Now I'd like to discuss Maslow's hierarchy. It is a theory of motivation based on unmet human needs, from basic psychological needs to safety, social and esteem needs to self-actualization needs. So, once the lower order needs are satisfied, they are no longer a motivational factor. Maslow originally developed 5 levels of needs. At the bottom, the very foundational need is psychological: food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep. Without these things accomplished, we cannot move up the ladder towards self-actualization. The second level, having health and safety and security, are the most important critical aspects above the very basic psychological needs. Only then can one pursue friendship, family, intimacy, and senses of connection. Self-esteem and self-actualization are at the top of Maslow's hierarchy. Do you know where you are on the chart right now? The textbook does not expand over the original 5 component model, but I felt it was important to show that within the last 50 years, there have been additional rungs added to Maslow's hierarchy. So he expanded them to include the cognitive cognitive and aesthetic needs, and later transcendence above self-actualization. These can be broken into two components, deficiency needs and growth needs. And once the efficiency needs are met, can one move on to growth needs and focus on the individual towards transcendence. Maslow also points out that very few people actually reach transcendence. This particular graph will not be on any exam, but again, I thought it was helpful to understand that self-esteem and self-actualization can actually be broken further down into cognitive or learning needs and aesthetic needs or beauty. I wanted to additionally list some characteristics of self-actualizers because I was interested myself in understanding what Maslow considered self-actualization. These types of individuals tend to focus on problems rather than themselves. They're highly creative individuals which understand the world on a different perspective. They don't criticize or they're not sarcastic to others, but they see individuals on a different level as part of humanity and part of a whole world. Now let's move forward to discuss McClellan. McClellan had a belief that each person had a dominating factor in their motivational drive. This drive comes from the characteristics of the individual person and our learned needs, which is another reason why McClellan's human motivation theory is also called the learned needs theory, because the dominant motivator is influenced by their environment. So these motivations can come through achievement, which means the individual wants to work hard, they want to be recognized for their goal, and they want to do it by themselves. Affiliation and contrast gets its motivation from being together and working in a group. The collaboration is favored over any competition, and they don't like risk or uncertainty. The third motivation is power. Power is a desire to control and influence. They tend to be more competitive than the others and want to enjoy status and recognition. At this moment, I'd like to recap Chapter 6 and Chapter 7 to ask you a few questions which may help you in preparation for the final. Leela has spent the last 2 hours going over customer surveys to see how well her company is achieving its goal of improving overall customer satisfaction. Leah's efforts are an example of the controlling function of management. If you selected true, you got it right. From the beginning of Chapter 6, we spoke about the definition of management and the 4 functions of managers. The 4 functions of managers are planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. From Chapter 7, I wanted to point out that this says the average cost of goods, not the total cost of goods, because when I ask this question, I often get varying answers depending on how the person is viewing the question. So the average cost of goods blank as production levels rise. Decrease. As you purchase a higher quantity of manufacturing goods, the overall cost per good decreases. What is the difference between a matrix organization and a cross-functional or self-managed team? Cross-functional teams have employees from different departments working together. Matrix organizations use project managers to manage teams. Cross-functional teams do not use a project manager. Or matrix organizations use a line and staff model. The first option is correct, but it doesn't answer the question. The last option is also correct, but it also doesn't answer the question. So if you chose option 2 or option 3, you are correct as both of these are true. I want to note on any exams that have multiple question and answer options, you will only choose one select answer on a quiz or test. With Chapter 8, blank is the value producers add to materials in the creation of finished goods and services. We discussed form utility last chapter and how it adds value to the raw material to create something new that the customer can then purchase because it saves them time, money, or has changed it either physically or chemically in some way so they're more easily able to use it. This is the conclusion of part 1. Part 2 will be recorded in a separate segment.